Hi, my name is Julia Mayberry, and I am presenting my unit on fractions for third graders called Two Halves Make a Whole. So let's go ahead and get into my first center on fractions in relationship to a whole. Let's go ahead and take a look at this lesson plan. I won't go too much into it, but I have all three of my activities on this one lesson plan. First is rainbow fractions. So rainbow fractions are a chance for students to understand fractions better by creating their own visual representation to understand fractions better when considering a whole number. So first, they have at the top red, one, which represents one whole, orange representing one half, yellow representing one third, and so on and so forth as they work their way down the rainbow. This is something I would want them to keep and reference if they're ever having trouble understanding a fraction and their size and comparison, because it will come in handy for some other activities coming up. So next we have Lego fractions. This essentially is a very similar activity to the last rainbow fractions, but it is using Legos and dry erase markers. This might capture some students' attention better than the rainbow fractions will and give them a better understanding using something that maybe they're more interested in. And they will use dry erasers to label their Legos. Once again, right here, the yellow is one half, and we can see 1/4 in relationship to one whole. Next, we have a slice of pizza, where students will be creating their own pizza using different toppings that you can order, and 8 slices of pizza. So they will, once they create their pizza with all of their toppings, they will then create their fractional distribution. They will write down the fractional distribution of pizza toppings. So as we can see, if we're looking for mushrooms on a pizza, we can see that on one of the 8 slices, there are mushrooms. So 1/8 of the pizza has mushrooms. Okay, and the exit ticket for this, for these centers will be this worksheet. I know we want to stay away from worksheets a bit, but I believe that this can be very beneficial for students to, and for myself, to make sure that they do have an understanding of fractions in relationship to one whole. So for this first one, we can see that a student should answer 2/4 or 1/2. All right. So next we have equivalent fractions as our next center activities. So let's go ahead and take a look at the lesson plan right here. Once again, included all 4 of the activities that we will be using. So first is the missing numerator. This is a super cute game for students to be placed in a group of 3 to 4. Students will have a card that they flip, such as right here, and they will see 1/4 is equal to what? So now they have to find that missing number, and that number is the amount of spaces that they move on the game board. So they can choose their own game marker, or I can provide game markers, of course. And they'll need a scratch piece of paper. So as we can see, 5 would be the missing number here, and they will move 5 spots. Next, we have equivalent fraction puzzle. So with this equivalent fraction puzzle, students will match puzzle pieces to the equivalent fraction. They will be provided this number line with the puzzle pieces, and it is their job to go ahead and match. So as we can see, 1/2, which is right down the middle, is also equivalent to 2/4, and both those numbers are equivalent to 4/8. Perfect. Next, we will do fraction mats. So fraction mats are a fun way for students to learn about equivalent fractions. Students are expected to use one fraction and find five equivalent fractions with it. So the students started with 1/3, and they were able to break it down to 3 1/9. And that's how they can see that these two are equivalent. Now they should keep working their way down to number 5. All right. Next is rainbow equivalent fractions. So I added this one in because I feel like it's a little bit of, I don't want to say a worksheet, but it could kind of look like a worksheet. But I think it's a really great reference for students. I would encourage them to keep this paper and once again go ahead and reference it when they're feeling a little bit confused about equivalent fractions. And maybe third graders won't go as far as to multiply by 7. Maybe they will. But they will start with, a fraction such as 5/12 and multiply both by 2 so they can see, oh, this is what it means to be equivalent. Next is our exit ticket. They will go to this website called splashlearn.com and play this game to find missing numerators and denominators. So as we can see here, the missing number would be, let's see, this is for me as well, 3, so it's 12. Perfect. And that is how I will grade them on these activities. So next we have comparing fractions. Let's go ahead and take a look at the lesson plan. The lesson plan once again includes all 3 of the activities that they will do for these centers, starting with fractions on a number line. So students will be provided a number line and dominoes. Students will grab the domino. I will encourage them to put the bigger number on bottom, no matter how they grab the domino, and the smaller number on top. They will then compare their dominoes based on where they land on the number line. So we have 1/4, 0/3, 2/5, and 1/2. This is where they all land on a number line, including the 0/3. And the person closest to a whole number is the winner of that round. So we can see 1/2 won that round. They keep the winning domino, and whoever has the most dominoes at the end of the game wins. Perfect. Okay, next is the game Guess Who. So students will play Guess Who with game pieces representing fractions. So as you can see, there's shapes with fractions in it, and we can see the picture that represents the fractions. And students will ask each other questions such as, does it have a number 3 in the denominator? Basically play the game Guess Who, but just with the math version, the fraction version of it. Next is Skittle fractions. So each student will have a bag of Skittles and this piece of paper. When they get their Skittles, they're going to go ahead and empty their bag and compare compare the colors by answering the questions on the paper. Next is the exit ticket for these centers. They will go to mathgames.com, lovemathgames.com, and play this game where they compare fractions. So we were comparing fractions even in the last center, seeing if they're equal, and actually this can relate back to it because it is equal, but there will also be others where they compare which one's bigger, which one's smaller. Okay, Next is adding and subtracting like fractions. So let's go ahead and take a look at the lesson plan. Once again, included all 3 activities on this one lesson plan, and let's get into it. This is on a roll where students will need dice. They will go ahead and roll the dice. They will have the same denominator, and they will roll the dice for their numerator, and then they will go ahead and add and subtract these fractions together. Next is all hands on deck. So I actually made a video of how to do this. Students will be playing on a number line like this, where they have the addition up top, and then their line in the middle is just my pencil. They will flip a card. So first it's 9 of hearts. I didn't have the game pieces, so I went ahead and I didn't have the deck of cards, so I went ahead and made it myself. And that 9 will represent both denominators as the number 9. Then we flip the card and we see it's a 2 plus 3. So we have 2 9s plus 3 9s. And then we can also exchange it for subtraction. So that is the game that they will be playing. Next is adding pizza. Students will have flashcards with pizza on it, representing a fraction. When they see the 2 cards that they flip, 2 6 and 1 6, they will add them together, and they will also subtract them together to see what the answer is. Students will complete this activity using a whiteboard and dry erase markers. So the exit ticket for this activity is a writing prompt, and the prompt is asking, how would you describe to new students how to add and subtract fractions? So I would take this writing prompt and evaluate it to see if they're on the right track. And hopefully I will also be able to kind of know who needs a little bit more help and support, because I plan to walk around the room, of course, as everyone is doing these activities. So that is my unit on fractions. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much.